Afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call our school board meeting to order. Want to welcome everybody who's joining us today. And for the first item, I would like to call for a motion for remote participation of one of our school board members, Miss Amanda Burns, please.
I ask that we allow Ms. Burns to participate remotely.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. And she is en route, so she should be joining us shortly. And then next, please, if you will join us for a moment of silence. Thank you very much. And if you will now stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Present.
Here. Here.
Yes.
Here.
Here.
Yes, thank you very much. All right, now may I have a motion for approval of our proposed agenda?
I move that we approve the proposed agenda.
Second it.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
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 Any opposed? Great, thank you so much. And now we will move on to our first opportunity for comments from members of the community. We do have two opportunities. You will be limited to 3 minutes. So those people in the media center, we do have somebody signed up. So Mr. Hartline, if you will come to the podium, please state your name and address, and then also remember your 3-minute limit. Thank you so much.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Gurley, who's not here today, sorry. My name is Derek Hartline, 1517 Antoinette Avenue. I'm here this evening to revisit a couple of the topics discussed at the March 7th board meeting. Tonight, the board is asked to take action on spending $40,000 on 2 weapon detection systems. Before the board makes their decision, please consider the following. If approved, what specific safety items will be moved down the list in order for this to occur? Where will the detectors be used? Would it be both the gym and football field? Currently, 4 or 5 officers are already positioned by the only access in the gym in case something should arise. So why would detectors also be needed? If detectors are going to be used at the football field area, how does this take into consideration the team buses that enter without detection? What's to stop an individual from placing a weapon in a bag and throwing it over the fence to be later retrieved once inside the gate? Although not up for discussion or action, I wanted to briefly mention the phone policy and something that caught my attention after the last board meeting. In the B Commons area, I noticed posters and flyers hanging up for the students to read. One being for mentors, one for Diversity Week, and a large one for AVID. However, on these 3 that I just borrowed and promised to return, each has a QR code on it to retrieve more information. Now, if all phones are supposed to be off and away during the day, how are QR codes included? Also, aren't all flyers sponsored or approved by staff members? If so, how much fidelity is being put into the policy if staff are permitting QR codes that encourage students to use their phones? I would like to use the remaining time I have to address some of the special recognitions for tonight. First, I know she's not here, but I'm very proud of Raquel Allen. for her new role as the board's student representative. I had the pleasure of being her second grade teacher at Jackson Via 10 years ago. Raquel is an inspiration on and off the court. Talking about basketball, I want to congratulate Adrian Crawford on an amazing season as CHS's head boys basketball coach. Mr. Crawford was in my second grade class 27 years ago. During my first year of teaching when I was at Johnson Elementary. Congratulations to Andy Jones, the student athletic director, for his dedication to both team success. Andy and I worked on the same college project together 16 years ago when he was pursuing his teaching career. Lastly, I know she's not here, but congratulations to Lucy Benedict for her second place finish in the student art contest. Lucy was in my second grade class just 3 years ago when we came back to in-person learning during COVID. It's been an honor and privilege to work with each one of you over the years. I hope you all have a wonderful spring break, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else here in the media center? If you'd like to step up to the podium for public comment. If not, we do have another opportunity towards the end of the meeting, and I will look to Mr. Como to see if there's anybody. Oh, anybody online? Hold on, please. Nope. Okay, come forward. Please state your name, address, and 3 minutes.
My name is Stephanie Martins, 3235 Melrose Lane, Keswick, Virginia. I'm a grad student at UVA studying school counseling, and I work in a city school 2 days a week as a tutor. I'm asking the school board to pass a resolution on informing parents of their responsibility to securely store firearms because it will benefit the children and families of our district. Nationwide, approximately 4.6 million children live in homes where they have access to loaded, unsecured firearms. And this increases the risk of accidental shootings, suicide, and other gun violence. During suicide assessments, school counselors have to ask the child if they have access to lethal means, for example, a gun. And if they say yes, we work with the family to get the gun out of the child's possession. This resolution would encourage families to make it so their child cannot access their guns before their kid potentially experiences a mental health crisis. As a future school counselor, I believe that schools have a responsibility to protect our students, and this includes informing parents of the importance of safe gun storage. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here in the media center? And again, we do have another opportunity towards the end of our meeting.
Hi, I want to piggyback on Stephanie's comment. I'm also a volunteer with Be Smart. And like she said, we promote children's safety by educating people about how to secure firearms safely. And this is because guns are the #1 cause of death for children ages 1 to 18 in the US. This is like a really low hanging piece of fruit that we can do to keep our communities safe. Albemarle just passed a resolution and they're going to start sending out this education to parents annually. And I think this would be just a really easy way for us to keep our kids and our whole community safe. God forbid, school shootings are the worst thing. One of the worst things there is out there, and evidence shows that 75% of kids who bring guns to school get them from the home of their parent or a friend or a relative. So these are guns that are coming from homes that are not properly secured. So this is another thing that we can do also to keep our schools safe.
Thank you. Can you state your name real quick, please?
Jenny Arcidicono, and I sent an email to y'all last week.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. We will move on. Thank you so much for those comments. Now we have an opportunity for comments from students. If there's any students who'd like to jump up to the podium. All right. And if not, we will save, I don't know if Kels is going to show up for the meeting or not, but the next part of our agenda would typically be where our student rep would offer a report. And we will keep on moving. And so we are now to our special recognition section of our agenda. And the first item, 8.1, is recognition of the Charlottesville High School basketball teams. So we have Mr. Andy Jones. Thank you so much, sir.
Good evening, Madam Chair, and members of the board. My name is Andy Jones, and once again, it's an honor to speak tonight and serve as the CHS Director of Student Activities. I'm excited to be here tonight as we honor two of our winter sports teams. Today is with great pride and admiration that we recognize the outstanding achievements of our boys and girls varsity basketball teams from Charlottesville High School. These remarkable student athletes have not only showcased their talent on the court, but have also embodied the values of teamwork, dedication, and perseverance throughout their remarkable journey. One of the most remarkable aspects of this past season has been the incredible way in which these teams have brought our community together. Their electrifying performances and unwavering determination have ignited a sense of pride and unity that transcends the boundaries of the basketball court. The entire community rallied behind these teams, coming out in huge numbers to support them in every game, every tournament, and every victory. First and foremost, let's extend our congratulations to the girls varsity basketball team on their phenomenal season. With a stunning record of 27 wins and only one loss, they've undoubtedly left an indelible mark on Charlottesville High School. The girls basketball team won the Jefferson District regular season championship with undefeated play in the district, were Jefferson District tournament champions, and also the VHSL Region 4 4D champions. Winning these titles is a testament to their relentless effort, resilience in the face of challenges, and their unwavering commitment to excellence. All of this was not by accident. It was created through the leadership of our amazing coaching staff of head coach Jim Daly, associate head coach Tabor Martin, assistant coach Juana Wardog, and JV head coach Quan Jones. They have not only brought glory to Charlottesville High School, but have also inspired countless individuals within our community. Similarly, we must applaud the boys varsity basketball team for their outstanding achievements in this season. With a commendable record of 23 wins and 5 losses, they won the first scrimmage play winter classic tournament in December and continued that success as they won the VHSL Region 4D championship. The boys basketball team was led by our legendary coach, Mitch Miner, who after 31 years of leading the Charlottesville boys basketball team is retiring with a total of 470 wins. That number of wins is impressive in itself, but the greater value has been the countless number of students, teachers, and other community members that he has positively impacted in his career here at Charlottesville High School. Coach Miner and staff, consisting of assistant coach Amari Miner, assistant coach Robert Jordan, JV head coach Adrian Crawford, and freshman coach Tony Payne, led this team with high standards and a belief that pushed these student athletes to a high level performance both on and off the court. And Coach Miner has done that for the past 31 years. The success of both teams is a reflection of the unwavering support and guidance provided by their coaches, families, and the entire Charlottesville High School community. Behind every victory lies countless hours of practice, sacrifice, and dedication, and it's evident that these teams have embraced those values wholeheartedly. I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations once again to both the boys and girls varsity basketball teams for their outstanding achievements this season. Your dedication, passion, and sportsmanship have not only brought pride to Charlottesville High School, but have also brought our community closer together. Thank you for being shining examples of the transformative power of sports and for inspiring us all with your remarkable journey. I would like to acknowledge each player and coach to come up as I call your name. For the varsity girls team, number 1, Sarah Colbert. Number 3, Tanaya Brown. Number 4, Avery Stavitsky. Number 11, Eva Floyd. Number 20, Caitlin King. Number 21, Raquel Allen. Number 22, Elena Pierce. Number 23, Kylie Jones. Number 24, Corinne Brown. Number 30, Micaiah Brown. Number 32, Kayla Drumheller. Our managers, Sydney Brown and Layla Singletary. Coaches, I want you to come up as well. Coaches, Juana Wardock, Juan Jones, Tabor Martin, and Jim Daly. And if you guys would stay, we're gonna get the boys up here as well. And now for the boys team. Number 0, Che Lewis. Number 1, Jacoby Lynch. Number 2, Ethan Havrin. Number 3, Nasir Sumter. Number 5, Grant Patterson. Number 10, Lamarion Brock. Number 11, Caleb Edgehill. Number 12, Aiden Yates. Number 15, Jonathan Red. Number 23, Lucas Arbalez. Number 25, Dashel Jackson. Number 31, Sam Fink. Number 44, Marjalen Jackson. And number 55, Luca Maddox. Manager, Snyder Pate. And coaches, I'm gonna have you come up as well. Tony Payne. Adrian Crawford. Robert Jordan. Omari Minor. And Mitch Minor. A lot of them. I recommend don't stand near Luca because then it really makes you feel short. Thank you all. Great seasons. Thank you all again.
Mr. Jones and teams, I just wanted to extend on behalf of the school board, again, just so much gratitude and congratulations to all of you, outstanding athletes, students, human beings, and parents. Thank you for all of your support. We appreciate you all. Thank you. All right. Moving on to some more fun stuff and celebrations. So now our next item would be recognition of the Virginia School Board Association Student Art Contest winners. So we have Mr. Aaron Nykhorst to present. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Aaron Nykhorst. I'm the coordinator for Fine and Performing Arts for Charlottesville City Schools. And it is my pleasure to be here this evening to present awards to 3 of our young Charlottesville City School artists. Each year, we submit 3 works of art to the Virginia School Board Association's annual art contest. And this year, we were delighted to learn that each of our selections received an award. And they're right here. Lucy Benedict's watercolor received 2nd place in the elementary category, and Lucy is a 5th grader at Walker. In the middle school category, Ruby Hoyer's Moulin Rouge received 3rd place. Ruby is currently an 8th grader at Buford Middle School. And in the high schools category, 11th grader Gino Park won second place with his incredible self-portrait painting. Each of these pieces will be included in our annual central office exhibit for the 2024-25 school year, and we are lucky. I would like to invite our three artists to come to the podium at this time to be recognized for their artistic achievement and to receive their award and certificate. If you're here, please come on up.
Thank you, students. Again, I just wanted to let you know real quickly that Mr. Morse, Dr. Gurley, and I were able to actually take your artwork to that competition. So it was fun to be able to bring those wonderful pieces of art to our Central Region spring session and to see you all come away and be recognized for the great work that you've done. So thank you so much.
And Madam Chair, if I'm not mistaken, we had the most awards, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you were keeping tabs and we'll say yes. So yay, Charlottesville City Schools. All right. Thank you again. Next, for a special recognition, I would like to welcome Miss Chuck. And I don't know if Dr. Johnson is here today or not, but this is in recognition of a very wonderful and special community member, Miss Lorraine Williams. So this is recognizing her legacy. So thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Ms. Powell. I'm actually going to call a little bit of an audible and just give a couple more shout outs, because when Elena Pierce's name was mentioned, I wanted us to acknowledge she was state champ and I think placed second in another event. I didn't prep for this, so I don't know that for sure. And I think at the Adidas Nationals, she placed second in one event and third in another. So, and some of those days she was literally running track and then changing her uniform and playing basketball. So let's give some props to Elena. And then while we're celebrating Andy Jones, let's also celebrate him and so many others who brought yet another great basketball team to our school. The Metford League, in their first year, in the CHS's first year participating in that league, went all the way to the semifinals. And I just personally absolutely loved going to the one game I was able to get to because the CHS students just did us so proud, celebrating really both teams and understanding the real meaning of those games. And it was just fun to see such good sportsmanship and such good skill among our players. So yay to Andy Jones and everyone who made that possible. And then finally, to our reps from the Be Smart group, I just want to acknowledge that we share that commitment. And we have sent out a message in a safety flyer that we send out to parents for the past 2 years, along with the calendar and some other back to school messages. But we certainly can speak with them about other ways to get that message out, because, and our flyer also highlights medicine safety too, because that's another big risk factor for children. And there are free gun locks and free medicine locks available to our community. So let's find better ways to get those messages out. All right, now for the thing I really did come here for. Lorraine Williams, we want to honor her. She was what the Daily Progress called one half of a civil rights power couple. And in light of her passing on March 13th at age 98, it is appropriate for our schools to pause and honor her tonight. Her service to our community extends far beyond her impact on Charlottesville City Schools, but because we are Charlottesville City Schools, that is where we're going to focus our attention on tonight's appreciation. If you will bear with me, I'm going to read a portion of the text from the historic marker that was installed at Johnson School in 2019. And this marker really tells the next chapter of Charlottesville School's desegregation story after Venable Elementary and Lane High School were desegregated on September 8th, 1959. So I will continue with the next chapter of the story, reading directly from the plaque. However, further integration was minimized and the other city schools remained segregated. To address this, Charlottesville's NAACP president, Eugene Williams, and his wife, Lorraine, herself a teacher at Charlottesville City Schools, sued to allow their daughter's transfer from all-black Jefferson Elementary into all-white Johnson Elementary. 15 other students and their parents were part of the suit, seeking transfers to Venable and Lane. Appealed to the United States Supreme Court, Dillard versus School Board of the City of Charlottesville ultimately forced Charlottesville City Schools to stop the discriminatory handling of school transfer requests. Consequently, on October 24th, 1962, Johnson Elementary was integrated by Carol and Cheryl Williams and by Michael Lewis and Rosalind Whitlock, whose requests to transfer into Johnson were also approved following the court ruling. Each victory paved the way for greater access to an equal education, and the ruling had significant impact across the state and country. Tonight, we honor Mrs. Williams for her service as a longtime teacher in our schools and for her service as someone willing to risk her own job for the betterment of our schools and community. And in the spirit of the Williams family's activism and forward thinking, I'm going to read the concluding words of the historic marker. Widespread integration of Charlottesville schools occurred from 1965 through 1966, but the work for true racial equity continues. If you would, I think, Madam Chair, if you want to call a moment of silence, I think that might be appropriate.
Thank you, Ms. Chuck. I will do that. So thank you for your words, and we are really blessed to have both she and Eugene here in our community. So if you'll join me now in a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, we're moving on now, and we will quickly entertain again a disclosure from Ms. Dooley.
Thank you. I, Emily Dooley, declare that I have a personal interest in a transaction of the Charlottesville City Public Schools for the reasons set forth below, but I believe I may participate in the deliberation and voting on the transaction as permitted by Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3112B1 and 2.2-3115H. Specifically, 1, the transaction in which I intend to participate is a vote on the 2024-2025 employee stipends, which includes pay to my spouse, a social science teacher at Buford Middle School. 2, by way of my association with my husband, I am a member of a group of 3 or more all employees of the school board, the members of which are affected by the budget/financial deliberations and approval. And I'm able to participate in the budget deliberations and vote fairly, objectively, and in the public interest. A full disclosure statement was filed with the Charlottesville City School Board clerk on February 22nd, 2023, and will be reflected in the public records of the clerk of the school board for 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next section is 10.0, and that is adoption of our consent agenda. If somebody would please move or offer a motion.
I move that we adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any
Yes.
opposed? Say no. All right, thank you so much. And moving on, we are now to action items. And our first item is 11.1, Ms. Fitzgerald will come up and is asking for action for the 2024-2025 Career and Technical Education Local Plan.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Ms. Powell. Last month, I presented the local application Perkins plan for the 24-25 school year. And tonight that I ask that you move and the board take action.
Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the the CTE local plan.
I'll
And-
second.
Okay. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you, Ms. Fitzgerald.
Great, thank you.
All right, and our next action item will be a presentation or a discussion or action being asked for on our weapons detection system. And Ms. Powell, I apologize for not recognizing you as sitting next to me for the meeting. We're grateful that you're here. So now take it away, please.
Well, good evening, Madam Chair, and members of the board. The information around this topic of weapons detection and whether or not we want to, go forward with implementing two sets of the pillars, if you will. So we would have two what they call gates for our athletics. It would be for both events at the field, at the stadium, and for the gym for the basketball games. And I believe when we presented before, we mentioned that if there happened to be an evening where there were events going on at multiple venues where we expected crowds, the administration would make a decision as to where the largest crowd would be and would likely deploy the gates there. They are very mobile and portable. We're really just here to answer questions that you may have, if you have any, before you take your action. And I have with us this evening our safety and security coordinator, Mr. Todd Kugler. So appreciate him being here with us in case there are more technical questions. He has done more deep research on this particular technology than I have, but we're here to support you if you have any questions.
So I guess first, if I can get a motion and then a second potentially, and then we can open it up for question or discussion or comments.
I'll move that we move to adopt moving forward with the purchase of the two gates.
Second.
I will open it up for discussion or comments. We'll start down here with Ms. Richardson, if you have any comments or questions.
Yeah, I do. So I remember the last time you were here, you mentioned that the detectors were already purchased, like we were moving forward with them regardless. I just wanted to clarify that.
Case, we had, following the guidance that we had established in 23 and recommendations from the local police department, we had done investigation on what technologies would best suit our needs, as well as be scalable enough that, we could use them down the road. They wouldn't become outdated or too expensive to maintain. But has not been a purchase made at this point. We have basically been in negotiations with the vendor that has the product we've chosen to find out what their delay from point of order to delivery would be, which is on average about 6 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
I think my comment is more maybe to you, Ms. Swift, a follow-up item of if we do vote to approve these, I would like to see kind of a flow chart or a checklist, if you will, of when they'll be used. So if there's, so we kind of run through, it's an event that is open to the public. Check. It has more than a certain number of people. Just so that we can be really clear and amongst ourselves and the division and to the public when these can be expected to be used, so that we don't have a slippery slope of, well, we've got them, let's use them, and portray ourselves as more of a police state than I think any of us are looking for us to be.
And could that include, I'm sorry, could that include action if there was a found item for the flow chart? Does that make sense?
We will need to have our procedures really clear for anyone who's what we would call working the gates. So yes, absolutely. And your request to outline for the public when gates would be used, that's certainly a reasonable request.
Yeah, so I would like to see guidelines and procedures too, and when the gates will be using, but I also would like to see at what events do we plan on using them, and are we picking and choosing which events we think the gates would be at? So I would like to have more clear guidelines of what that look like. And again, to Dom's, it's like the action plans behind if something is found.
Mr. Morse? Ms. Burns?
Yes, I think just making very clear that if we do decide to move in this direction, that these are not intended to be used at the front door of our school Monday through Friday. And that there would be additional conversation if that were to come up again, that this does not give kind of a full access to all properties and all venues and spaces and what we have going on here in our school, that we are very clear that these are for specific athletic events and public events that we deem appropriate.
Mr. Meyer?
Yeah, I want to agree with my colleague, Ms. Dooley, on having some kind of checklist where we, again, are using a policy procedure. Sounds like that's already in place, and thank you for developing that. I also share Ms. Burns' concerns that, and or other colleagues' concerns that these will somehow end up at the front of the school, which I do not believe is an appropriate use of them. I think I want to make sure we're not changing out any security protocols we have at this moment, that these will then again replace any of that, which I'm seeing a head nod, that I think this is complementary to, again, our existing security procedures that provide at, again, events. I'm more okay with this because I think this is different than our normal everyday school procedures where we have a population that's visiting the school that is defined. There's hardened, I don't like to use that, but to a certain extent, and over fixing the doors that are broken or whatnot and allowing folks in. But that, right, the other situations we're talking about are where we don't have a full control of the perimeter and are using other, again, and other people from outside of our community are coming in that would go against, I think, our main, if I understand things, security kind of an anti-gun strategy of relationships and people sharing information when they see something. So I just wanted to read it. I think we're going to continue to use those main strategies. And again, this is just a tool for a very unique set of situations that sounds like will be defined. Okay, thank you.
Just one more point, that while we may move in this direction, do not want to take away from what the board has asked, the important work to continue to happen in the schools of building relationships and maintaining those and utilizing all the tools and resources that we have in the building and all of the really great resources and supports in addition to our community partners. So thank you.
Thank you, board members. Any other comments or questions? So I agree with a lot of the things that have been said. So thank you all for your comments. I think my only comment outside of what may have already been shared is just a request. And I don't know if this falls, I think it dovetails into this. And I've said it before that, again, my priority personally is to really want to see the door secure, you know, so the Charlottesville High School doors and other school doors. And then we've talked about radio communication, those types of things still up as number 1 and 2 on our list and just a regular update of those types of things and the time of when those things will be happening, because those are really a priority here for the high school.
Not to switch topics, but since you brought it up, the access control upgrades that have already been approved. I just spoke with the vendor this afternoon. They're going to be on site at Greenbrier doing the security systems upgrades there next week. And he's going to have an additional crew come over here and start the work next week on the upgrades for the building here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
To further clarify, what we started doing with our elementary modernization projects, as it became clear we need to move on access and cameras for our elementary schools as well, we try to couple those together. And so, the modernizations have become 2 summer type things because of supply chain and all kinds of issues. But so that decision just happened to coincide with when the modernization got to Greenbrier. But the vendor is on track. We had really never expected them to be able to start here until spring break, but they have validated they'll be here Monday. So it's
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Any other questions, comments? I believe we did have a motion from Ms. Dooley and a second from Mr. Morse. I will ask for a voice vote on this, please. So all in favor? Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Dooley?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Richardson?
Yes.
And Ms. Torrance?
Yes. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. And our next and only item for discussion, a very important one, we have Ms. Rasnick for the 2024-2025 Special Education Annual Plan.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm Rachel Rasnick, Director of Student Services for Charlottesville City Schools. So I'm here to present information about the expenditures of funds, both state and local, towards students with disabilities. We align our expenditures with the Charlottesville City Schools strategic plan in the ways I've identified here, through increasing academic achievement, providing that culture of safety, wellness, and belonging, supporting our staff. And we endeavor throughout all of this to ensure fiscal stewardship for the benefit of our students with disabilities. So I'm going to start with a brief introduction to who we serve. So each year we report the number of students with disabilities in Charlottesville City Schools through a process called the December 1 Job Count. This data is used for a number of purposes. You'd be surprised how many ways that this data is used at the state and local level. But those include 2 big pieces: program evaluation as well as funding. From 2022 to 2023, we saw a reduction in the number of identified students receiving services for less than 50% of their day. That's approximately a reduction of 8%. The population of students with intensive support needs, however, increased by 3%. So that's shown by the students who receive services greater than 50% of the instructional day. This is a report of our students by
I just want to let you know, we don't have this in our packet, so that's why we're turning around to look at this. We're not trying okay, all right. I just didn't want you to
Sorry.
think we were being rude and
No,
not.
you're welcome to look at the screen instead of me. That's fine.
Thank you.
So this is a report by placement. So a big part of our obligation for students with disabilities is to serve them in their least restrictive environment. And so as of December 1st, 8% of our students were served outside of our comprehensive school settings, which includes the public separate setting, which is Ivy Creek. And then the 3 schools that we have the largest number of students served at is the Virginia Institute of Autism, Elk Hill, and Keys Academies. By grade band, we have 2 students who are elementary age served outside of our public schools, 7 students in grades 5 through 6, 9 students in grades 7 through 8, and 21 students in grades 9 through post-high. This year, we have a net gain of students returning to our schools with fewer placements and pending referrals than students who have returned. Our goal is to see that number of students served outside of our comprehensive settings decrease every year. So the next thing of note is where our variances have occurred. And we have seen noticeable changes in the number of special education students identified in under different designations. So we've seen an increase of greater than 10% for eligible students with autism, multiple disabilities, and traumatic brain injury. And then we've seen a decrease by greater than 10% for eligible students with specific learning disabilities, other health impairments, and emotional disabilities. Go ahead.
Do you mind if we ask questions during
Yeah,
this?
no,
Is
go
that
ahead.
all right? So I'm just curious about that with the specific learning disabilities. Do you feel like they're being identified more specifically in some of those other categories?
We're seeing that a large number of students respond to pre-referral interventions through the multi-tiered system of supports. So we're identifying fewer students with specific learning disabilities because their needs are being met without special education. So students are able to access intense structured literacy intervention prior to entering special education. We are also exiting students who have become successful. And so that's something to celebrate. That's often what our goal is. We want students to be found eligible to have the protections they need and then exit when they no longer need those protections. And so we are seeing more and more high school students either exit entirely or transition from an IEP to a 504 plan when they just need accommodations at that point.
Do you mind speaking a little bit to, so a student who's been identified with a disability? I mean, not always, in my specific case, heard that once my student was identified with a disability, that sticks with them forever. And so that was kind of used as a tactic, I believe, in that specific meeting. But then also, and not so much that, but once, yes, we're celebrating, but also as a parent of a student with a disability, I mean, honestly, I was nervous to sign off on some of those things on the accommodations because I wanted to ensure that my student had the supports that they needed moving on after high school. So can you speak a little bit to what we might do now through the division to ensure that those things are in place?
So in the past, I will say 10 years, we have improved our identification practices to have less disproportionate identification of students. So one of the pieces is that we are identifying students more accurately under the designation of specific learning disabilities. What I think is important to recognize is while you might have a disability that you will live with your entire life, you may not require specially designed instruction or an IEP throughout your whole school career. And that is a mindset shift, and it can be really hard as a parent, as a general education teacher, as a special education teacher, to let go of the plan. That plan, those plans are federal protections to get what's in the document. But we are trying to increase our understanding and our advocacy for students in that we provide what is needed, no more and no less. And so as a student becomes independent, which is our goal, independent in their learning, independent in their living, and kind of in their work in the community, we want them to graduate out of our services. That's a mindset shift for sure.
Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about the decrease in the identification of specific learning disabilities. One of the things that is important to note is our increases are in the designations that often require the most intensive level of support. And the decreases are in the disabilities that are often served at the resource level, which means less than 50% of the school day. So our most significant expense for students with disabilities is our staff. I mean, that's the case in all of our programs. But I wanted to walk you through how many people we have supporting our students with disabilities in the city, because it is something that is comparably very good. So by level, so in early childhood special education, we have 6 special education teachers. We have a preschool evaluator who's also a special education teacher. And then we have 7 special education instructional assistants. Services for children in age 2 through 5 are provided in a variety of settings, including local private preschools. We serve students at Barrett. We were serving students at MACA. We serve students by having their families bring them in in a way that works with their schedule. And then we have classrooms. But the majority of our preschool students with disabilities are served in what's called the regular early childhood setting, which means alongside their peers in a classroom with students with similar disabilities and students without disabilities. So in grades K through 4, so at our elementary schools, we have 19 special education teachers and 27 special education instructional assistants. And then at the secondary level, we start to see more teachers than instructional assistants because we're seeing more independence in our students. And so we have 30 special education teachers at Walker, Buford, and CHS, and 13 instructional assistants. When I look at those and remove students who are not case managed by a special education teacher, so students who have a speech language impairment, they're case managed by a speech language pathologist, we have an average of 9 students with disabilities per special education teacher. So it's not all about the teaching. There's a lot of related services associated with providing a free and appropriate public education. So this year we transitioned to employing our occupational therapist and our physical therapist. Previously, they were contracted through PrEP. So they're now our employees. We provide what they need in terms of professional development, and they support our students directly. All students with disabilities have access to the supports of a school counselor, a school mental health professional, school nurse, and general education teachers. But in addition to that, they may receive services from one of these roles as outlined in their individualized education plan. So that's our school psychologists and our clinical psychologists providing counseling and evaluation services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language therapy. And then we have a position of a board certified behavior analyst that is currently a vacancy, unfortunately, but we're going to work on it. The other thing to note is, as we've been talking about English language learners, we also want to remember, we've reminded ourselves that an English language learner requires support from an ESL teacher and a general education teacher. Well, we have 53 English language learners who also have disabilities. And so that student would get support from the special education teacher, from the general education teacher, and that ESL teacher to ensure their progress.
Excuse me, Ms. President, just quick clarifying question, maybe you mentioned this earlier, I didn't hear it, my apologies, but these are all FTEs, full-time employees? Okay.
Yep. It takes a lot to stay current and on point with state and federal regulations around the implementation of IDEA. And so we do have 2 coordinators who work at the division level for special education. There's myself. A large part of what I do is for special education. And then we do have an administrative technician who supports our data and reporting requirements. So then we talked a little bit about how we have a large number of students who require intensive supports. We have 2 exceptional and treasured special education programs in Charlottesville City Public Schools. The first is our life skills education and adapted curriculum program, who Ms. Hartline and Mr. Hartline can speak to how treasured it is at Jackson Via. That program is also at Walker and Charlottesville High School. We had recent visits from some state monitors who said that the LEAP program at Jackson Via is the best in the state. So huge kudos to them. In this program, so out of those numbers I already shared, 8 of those special education teachers are in our LEAP classrooms and 18 instructional assistants. Due to the intensive support needs of these students, working towards their academic, recreational, vocational, domestic, and community goals, our student to staff ratio is about 2.5 students per staff member. So a program that we have expanded significantly in the past year is our structured teaching program. It was formerly known as STAR. STAR stood for Structured Teaching Autism Resource Program. And what we found is that there are more students who can benefit from structured teaching than just students with autism. So we removed autism from the name and have expanded it to where it is at 5 of our 6 elementary schools, Walker and Buford. That was a huge lift for the teachers who started this program this year. They have all worked diligently. There have been highs and lows. We've definitely all shed some tears expanding so quickly. But the picture here is of Johnson, our new classroom at Johnson. So these classrooms are built upon the principles of structured teaching, which is that through physical structure, visual schedules, work systems, and routines, students can access learning. So they're very intensely structured at the early grades in kindergarten and first grade. And as students become more independent, the amount of structure changes. We don't want to ever remove structure because sometimes that's what's helping kids be successful, but we mature those structures. So in our older classrooms, you'll see less physical boundaries, but you'll see the same type of work systems and conscious use of visuals. In our elementary classrooms, our student to staff ratio for these programs is 1.8 students per staff. And then at Walker and Buford, it's about 3 students per staff member. We continue to work with PrEP for a number of services that are best provided. These are, many of these services do not require a full FTE. And so PrEP allows us to one year have 2 days, the next year have 3 days, the next year have 1 day based on our students' needs. So we access PrEP for adapted PE, vision, orientation and mobility, and assistive technology. Ivy Creek is our public separate school, which is run by PrEP. And then the Parent Resource Center is accessible to all of our families. Stephanie Hicks comes to our Special Education Advisory Committee meeting. And then we're going to buy back in for some autism and behavior consultation through PrEP for next school year. So in addition to the salaries and benefits of the staff that I shared, special education students require a number of specialized devices, interventions, and equipment to access a free and appropriate public education. I just wanted to highlight in the past year some of our significant expenses, so you have an understanding of why we propose the budgets that we do. We spent a large amount of money equipping and supplying our new structured teaching classrooms, furniture, interventions, resources. As our PrEP, occupational therapists and physical therapists became our staff, that also meant we had to buy a large amount of equipment. So that includes things like adapted tricycles, activity chairs that are specially designed to help students engage with an eye gaze device or with their learning materials, standards, and communication devices.
Is there, federal or state money that is extra that comes along to support this, or is this coming out of our general funds?
So the punchline is we locally fund a large number of these devices and this staff. We do complete an application annually called the CISNA, which allows us to report the actual cost of educating students in intensive support programs. But the LCI is applied to that. So I'm working on that right now to report for first semester. But it's one more thing that the LCI will adjust out. And it's why requiring these devices, you know, an IEP team says that a student requires a communication device. That's why there are federal flow-through funds through the state for us to be able to purchase things, but it doesn't come close to what the actual cost of educating our students is. So in addition to things, we also need to provide opportunities for our special education teachers to improve their practice. So some large things that we did this year is we did a multidisciplinary book study across our department, as well as having a fabrication station, which is an opportunity for anybody, general education or special education, to come and make the visuals and materials that are needed. We had some experts in the field come in and work with general education teachers, special education teachers. A huge shout out to our fine arts teachers who all came and learned more about teaching students with autism and executive dysfunction, as well as investing in MANT, which is required restraint and seclusion training for our staff. So I wanted to give an overview of everything that we do to really paint a picture of how while we will submit an annual plan, it doesn't really scratch the surface of the cost of educating our students with disabilities. But I will go through our annual plan proposal just for clarity to make sure you know what we're requesting and how we propose to spend our allocation. So I'm going to go through each section. It's a little bit dry, but we will do our best together. So the first part is we have to make assurances that we have established policies and procedures that adhere to federal and state regulations. And that includes a long list. It's about 20 items. It's ensuring a free and appropriate public education to all children with disabilities. It's maintaining students in their least restrictive environment, ensuring that an IEP is in place. It also includes parental rights, so parental safeguards, making sure that student records are kept confidential, ensuring ongoing parent participation. It makes sure that we conduct appropriate evaluations for all students suspected of having a disability. And so we're required to have a process called Child Find, where we find the children with disabilities in our city, whether they attend our school or not. And then the other assurances that are listed in the plan. One part of the plan is that we have to ensure that if there's a local or regional jail within our geographic boundaries, that we can provide special education there. But we don't have one of those. So we don't have to do that. Each year as part of this process, we make sure that we are implementing our previous plans appropriately. And so we're on track to expend our remaining Title VI-B funds by the deadline. We'll use them to support students who are receiving extended school year through the purchase of materials and supplies predominantly. We also have to establish that we have complied with the regulations regarding maintenance of effort. And Renee is my partner in that work, but that's a regulation that requires that school divisions spend at least the same amount of funds on students with disabilities as were spent the previous year. So we use the December 1 child count as part of that calculation. And then the other thing that we have to do is we have to set aside a portion of our funds to educate and provide services to students with disabilities who don't attend our schools. So if you have a disability and you are parentally placed in a private school, or if you're homeschooled, we set aside a proportionate amount of our federal Title 6B funds to provide materials and supplies. We provide direct speech services, consultative special education services, and professional development to private schools or homeschool parents as requested. At the end of the year, if we haven't spent those funds, because sometimes there are a few requests, we get to spend those funds on the students who do attend our schools. I'm almost done, I promise. The last two pieces are how we actually plan to break out our 611 and 619 funds. So 611 are funds that we can spend pre-K through age 22. We're proposing to have 5 instructional assistants, 11 special education teachers, and 1 special education coordinator funded through our Title 6B. So thinking back to how many staff we have, it's a large share is funded locally. And then for Section 619, which is only available for children ages 2 through 5, we will allocate all of those funds, with the exception of internal services, to funding about half of an early childhood special education teacher. We also, through 611, hope to send some teachers to North Carolina to engage in further intensive teach training. It's really the gold standard for professional development for teaching students with autism. We provide contracted services for students who are hearing impaired to work with a teacher of the deaf and hearing impaired. And then we have materials and supplies funds for some of the things that I mentioned before. So in closing, let me get to my last page. So this is presented for discussion. We'll bring it forwards for action next time. It was presented to our Special Education Advisory Committee, and they supported the implementation and proposal as it was presented. And I just wanted to thank you for the significant local contribution in the budget for students with disabilities. Without the staff that we have and the investment in that staff, we would not be achieving what we're able to achieve.
Thank you. Any questions, board members? Mr. Meyer, we'll start down there.
I'd like to listen and maybe come back if you don't mind. Thanks.
Sure. Ms. Burns?
Not necessarily question, but I understand recently at Jacksonville, one of the adaptive tricycles has come missing from that community. And that's very concerning that our students don't have access to that equipment right now. And so I'm wondering what the community could do maybe to help with that, other than, what has been done. And I understand the community has tried to rally around that, but just want to make sure that everyone's looked and keeping an eye out, and just the importance of that equipment, and that it is very expensive, and our students deserve access to that equipment. And it is deeply concerning to me that that left the property, and that we have students going out without that equipment now.
If you've not had a chance, you should definitely visit our bike garage at Jacksonville. Leisure is a large part of a LEAP program, teaching students with disabilities how to spend their time for fun, how to make choices, how to enjoy their environment. And so we too were very upset that this personal piece of equipment was removed from the property. And we'll work with the family and invest ourselves if need be to ensure that we continue to have access to that equipment.
Ms. Cooper? That's okay.
I don't have anything right
Okay.
now.
Ms. Dooley? Ms. Richardson?
I want to say thank you for your presentation. Special ed education is dear to my heart. My dad taught for many years in high school. And I think my question is, so how do we seek the children who are not in our schools? Like, how do you go about that?
So there's a few different ways. So one way is that often students with disabilities access services through what's called Part C or early intervention. So we make sure that we have a working relationship. We have a very positive relationship with Part C. And so all of those students who get services before being school eligible, they get referred to us. So we capture a lot of students through that. We have what's called a requirement for meaningful consultation. And so monthly, I send a notice to our private schools. So that's not just for students who live in the city. So anyone who attends Charlottesville Day School or Renaissance can access special education evaluation and supports through Charlottesville City Schools. So they get a letter monthly from me that just says, just remember, we're here, with some flyers about information for families. We do have an active referral process, especially from Charlottesville Day School, who has a comprehensive tiered system of supports program. And then there's information put out in our calendar. If you're concerned about your child, reach out. I work with local pediatricians' offices so they know they can refer to us. We have connections at UVA. So if a family comes in to developmental peds, for example, our hospital ed program and the consultation program there will refer children to us. And then honestly, it's word of mouth. So if ever a mom says to another mom or a dad says to someone else, like, hey, I'm worried about my child, we get a lot of referrals because someone says, hey, I had a great experience with Charlottesville City Schools, like just reach out, like they're here to help too.
Particularly in our pre-K programs, do we currently have enough seats to satisfy the needs in our community?
VPI seats.
Sure, or just our students who are receiving early education and special ed services.
We do. And so students with disabilities can automatically qualify for VPI at this point. There used to be a lot of barriers at the state level for students with disabilities because there was an income cap. And disability doesn't discriminate. All families might have a child with a disability or an adult with a disability. And so the state has made improvements recently to eliminate that income cap. So if you have a child with a disability who is preschool aged, you're eligible for our preschool program. We serve kids in a variety of settings because we want families to be able to make the same choice for their children with disabilities that they would make for their non-disabled children. So if you chose for your kids to go to the Child Development Center, we want your kid to get to go to the Child Development Center. But we staff our early childhood special education program based on need. And we have enough teachers and instructional assistants at this time. And if we don't, we have a process every year where we look at where our needs are highest and make adjustments accordingly. Does that answer your question? Maybe not.
Yes, and then just thinking ahead, and I'm not fully clear on what's happening with MACA and Head Start, but how do we see that anticipating our needs heading into next fall? Or do we not know yet?
I don't think we know yet for next fall. I do know that we have reached out and Sheila Sparks has been working with those families to get applications in so that they can attend our schools for the remainder of the school year. So she's working with principals, teachers, families to make sure that those kids get preschool. We have always served kids at Head Start, so there won't be a barrier for any students with disabilities who might have been at Head Start to join our schools.
Do you mind just kind of, if you can, just give a brief summary of what those changes are, just for the rest of the board members? I know Ms. Dooley and I were on the pre-K steering committee, so we heard some of those changes. So we're talking about temporary, I think, changes to Head Start and some students. So if you could address, do you feel comfortable doing that?
Yeah.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yeah. So through some changes in the community around the Head Start grant, the Park Street MACA Center is not staffed to support the students who are enrolled there. And so the majority of the students who attend that center are Charlottesville City students. Families choose Head Start for a variety of reasons. And often one of them is they went to a Head Start program. So I think there is some grief associated with kids transitioning to us, not because people don't want to come here, but because it is sad for a center to not be available for students. But we're working with those families to make sure that if they want their child to continue to receive preschool, that we are where they land.
So there's so there's a number of students, as she alluded to, that we're trying to absorb into our schools for Charlottesville City Schools. And we are really lucky that we're able to do that and offer those seats and the continuation of services pretty seamlessly. And so I just want to express gratitude to Sheila and her team and you all for doing that work. And just, I think what struck me, and I think probably Ms. Dooley as well, but I don't mean to speak for you, is that some of our surrounding school divisions don't have those seats available within their schools. So those students are kind of, they don't know. I mean, there's really a big question mark as far as what and how those students will be served. So I'm grateful that we can absorb our students right now. So thank you. Ms. Cooper, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
So I've been talking to several parents, some kids with disabilities, but their barrier is the time that preschool is, like from 7:30 to 2:30, and still having to work a full-time job. So have we thought about ways to support their like those type of families that want to have their kids in preschool, but the time doesn't allow that?
So have we thought about it? Yes. Have we solved it? No. But I do know through our conversations about the preschool center, aftercare for preschool students is something that we're discussing, thinking about. There is a different standard for childcare for preschoolers. And so it would be at this time exceptionally challenging to meet that need in our schools with our current offerings for elementary age students. But it is definitely, it gives us a lot of heartburn. Over time, we've extended the 3-year-old day. 3-year-olds used to attend 9 to 1:45. That day has been extended. And then we do have students who attend Barrett is a good example of we can use they're called mixed delivery slots. So for families who do work, who don't have a 8 to 2:30 job, those children may be able to attend Barrett using the child care subsidy grant and the VPI grant to be able to attend at little cost to the family.
I'm sorry, and what time does Barrett end?
They are more like a typical child care center, like 7:30 to 5:30. I don't know exactly.
Thanks, Chair, for coming back to me. And my daughter had a speech pathology issue and utilized your services, and we graduated out. And anyway, was impressed with how that all worked. Wanted to mention that, but I'd also question about the PrEP program. I think the Piedmont Regional Education Program, that is, again, an association, this consortium with other districts, right? If I understand it correctly?
Yes. So it's a regional program. We work with Nelson, Green, Fluvanna, Albemarle, Culpeper. I'm going to forget somebody, Madison. And we're able to purchase services basically per day for some of those high need, low incidence services, like vision services, where we don't have enough need to have a full-time vision teacher, and very few people want to take a job for like 1 day a week. So it supports us very well in that regard.
And I think I may have heard that there might be a large district that might be pulling out of that program, and would that impact us?
So the program that a large district is trying to pull out of is Ivy Creek. That is part of PrEP. It is a public separate school that we fund on a per slot basis. So Charlottesville City Schools pays the tuition for 19 slots. Other divisions have a different number of slots per our agreement. It is the largest expenditure for PrEP. And so if that school division doesn't pay for the slots that they have agreed to pay for, we'd be going back to the table with PrEP to relook at their budget.
So even though they're committed and supposed to be paying, they're not going to follow through on their commitment or their agreement. Is that, if I understand that correctly? They would not be following through on their agreement.
I think
I
that
think-
that's to be
Yeah,
determined.
the PrEP board just passed its budget at our last meeting. And so at this point,
We'll have to wait and see, but
Nobody
it
has
could
not.
negatively impact us and a bunch of other folks if they pull out and don't honor their commitment.
TBD.
TBD. Oh, that's interesting. Thanks.
So we have 19 slots for Charlottesville City Schools. How many students do we have in those slots?
We currently have 11. We've reduced the number of students served there. We do have a number of students who were our students who moved. And so the county that they moved to purchased their slot. So we don't have access to all 19 slots, but we are not utilizing all of them.
Real quick, Ms. Dooley, I think you're a representative. Are the other districts concerned also about this? Or I don't know how much you can talk about it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has been impacted by a difficult budget year. And so any decision outside of our control that impacts expenditures is a concern.
Question, you mentioned we have a board certified behavior analyst opening. What do we do to recruit that person? What does that recruitment look like? Who is doing that work for us?
So I think one of the things that we have discussed is how difficult it is to hire a board certified behavior analyst on a teacher scale. The majority of the candidates are people who still require supervision. And because we don't currently have a BCBA, we can't provide supervision. But I'm working with a professor at UVA to consider how supervision could be provided in a different way. But we're also looking to retool the job description and requirements so we get someone that meets our needs. That's really our priority. While we'd love to have someone who's fully certified and who has a wealth of experience, there are times where someone who has a wealth of experience can meet our needs just as well. So that's our plan right now.
So you had mentioned that this is the first time in a while or ever that we've had our own occupational therapist or physical therapist under the Charlottesville City Schools umbrella. And go ahead. I won't hold you to knowing that answer. My question was ongoing, so I wasn't clear. So is that based on just needs here? Or is it based on kind of like I mean, I'm a physical therapist. So I mean, I feel like, yeah, we definitely have enough, students within the division that could benefit. Um, but it was just kind of looking ahead and seeing some of the changes potentially. And correct me if I'm wrong, that would be a service that we would have contracted from prep, correct? Before?
So it's more cost effective to employ them ourselves. And so since we were paying for multiple full-time people, the benefit of contracting through prep is not there. We are very lucky. The occupational therapists who we had through prep decided to come on board. So we've had great continuity of service in a more cost-effective way. And that would be the case for all of those services. If we needed a full-time person, it would be more cost-effective to recruit them ourselves.
I mean, I know that we've got a great technology group here within Charlottesville City Schools. And I know that, again, my student benefited from some assistive technology and the consults that prep had offered, but it seems to me like that would be a great person or service to have just in-house, and not just limited to our students with disabilities. I mean, I think everybody can benefit from so much of what is out there, just for learning and equity's sake. So have we thought about or talked about that at all?
We've talked about reducing our assistive technology services. What we get from prep is a very specialized level of support for students with highly complex communication needs. So our prep providers are experts in assistive and augmentative communication. What we do a lot of in-house is meet other assistive technology needs. So we manage our own FM systems. We deploy and update devices as appropriate. We have a universal design model for a lot of assistive technology. All students have access to read and write for Google. That benefits many, many students. We access Learning Ally at the division level. So all students with learning needs, IEP or not, can access that. So a lot of what we do in terms of assistive technology is through our exceptional speech language pathologists, our occupational therapists. What continuing with prep allows us to do is send representatives to a conference that happens throughout the year. There's 3 or 4 different sessions called DIG AT. And so that allows our staff to build capacity on lots of different things. So students from I'm Determined will come and help our teachers understand more about what benefits them at college, what benefits them at work. We'll have presentations on new and upcoming changes to augmentative communication. And so we do a lot of in-house, a lot more than we did before, but we still see a need for that really specialized support for our people who are already experts.
Makes sense. Thank you. Any other questions? Anybody? Thank you so much. This was really a great comprehensive report and presentation. And I think we all appreciate it. I think I'm safe to say that. So didn't want to speak for everybody, but I really, really do appreciate just, I don't know, a little extra explanation to this, I think made a difference. So thank you for your time. And we'll see you next month, I guess, or at our next meeting.
Yes, to take
for
action.
action. Yeah, thank you. All right, next we have board response to written reports, and within that you can see the committee reports for meetings and such that went on in the last month. And then we are down to our next opportunity for comments from members of the community. So again, if anybody would like to come forward to the podium, please state your name and address, and you have got 3 minutes, and nice to see you.
Good to see you. Good evening. My name is Peter Davis. I'm the urban farming teacher here at Charlottesville High School, and wasn't planning on talking tonight, but maybe because we're heading into spring break and I'm feeling good, why not? So I just want to say I felt very represented in a lot of things that happened tonight. First, thank you for approving the CTE, the Career Tech Education local plan as a CTE teacher. I appreciate the support you all give us. I think the work that's done in that department here and in Beaufort is fantastic. So just thank you for all the support and the work that Megan did getting that plan to you all. I know it was a heavy lift. Thank you for that. And then also to that special ed plan y'all just produced. My first 12 out of the 20 years I've been teaching, I was a special ed teacher, and just working in this division, I appreciate the you know, all that's allocated to special ed. And one of the joys of my day, I get to actually teach a garden to market class with the elite students here. And if you haven't had a chance to meet these kids, they are phenomenal, which I think is a testament to the whole division, just getting them all the way up to here. The group here, the teachers and the IAs just do a phenomenal job. It was really cool to be a part of the Medford League that Chuck talked about earlier. I got to, you know, because I work with them, I was able to get down there and on the court with them and have a good time. And it was just a joy for the whole school. So hats off to everyone that's involved in all of that. So just wanted to say thank you for all the great things that are happening. And I was able to host an event last week here at the school farm. Just want to say thank you to Miss Dooley and Miss Burns for being able to make it out to that. And I know the students appreciated having the representation there too. So thanks so much.
I'm going to use the last 30 seconds of Peter Davis's time to
Please do.
thank him for putting on, for really not for putting on a show, not for an event, but for all the work he has done to build up that urban farming class. Adam Ortiz, for the Mid-Atlantic Regional Director of the EPA, could not have been more complimentary of his program and of his students and of the teacher who makes it all possible.
We do appreciate you. Thank you. Any other comments here, public in the media center? All right. I don't know if there's anybody online. Miss Alexis Mason, we always appreciate you following along, and I hope you have a great spring break. All right. We will close that, and now we will move on to comments from the board. So, eeny meeny, we'll start with Mr. Myers.
Thank you, colleagues. I thought our deliberations around the weapon detectors was thoughtful, a good process, and I'm happy where we landed on that. So I want to thank everybody, and I think the staff put in a lot of time researching the topic and presenting it. And again, I'm happy where we were at and the amount of thought and due diligence that went into that. I do want to again reiterate, though, I think our primary focus, as I understand it, relationships, see something, say something is very key. And I hope we don't lose sight of that. And again, utilize, I think, which is a tool as solving the problem. I also want to note, I don't, unfortunately, we're having to mitigate a failure of other policymakers to control guns, which is really frustrating, from an overarching society perspective. And I hope everyone understands that. A couple other things that have been on my mind. I'm thinking about the budget, and I'm hoping I have not heard anything particular, nor am I putting budget report, and I have not seen the governor, unfortunately, sign, I think, the budget yet, nor the bill that would allow us to have a referendum on sales tax. But I'm hoping that the governor will accept that and move through on that. Maybe Miss Williams has an update on that, but no, or Powell, excuse me, Miss Powell, no. Secondly, one thing that I did note, I met, I think, 2 weeks ago with Green Bacon, a club here from the high school that's focused on green initiatives, climate change, et cetera. And one thing they were asking me about is solar on our schools, which I think, if I remember back in 2019, there was a board initiative, a resolution to work with city staff to try to put as many clean energy efficiency initiatives into place. And I think, unfortunately, one thing that has fallen through the cracks is taking advantage of putting solar on our schools. When I was looking at the budget again, our utility bill has increased by $500,000, about 50% over the last 5 years. And so colleagues, I am interested in working on that with Ms. Powell, if she's willing to collaborate with me and city staff and see how we can maybe accelerate actually making some of those things happen. Now that the city staff are maybe better staffed and maybe have some capacity about that. I just wanted to, I guess not asking permission from everybody, but putting that out there and or thinking about how we can maybe make that happen. Thank you.
Ms. Burns?
Thank you. Took the wind right out of my sails, Miss Chuck. Thank you. I was going to recognize, and I will thank Mr. Davis. Ms. Julie and I, again, were able to come on the 19th and just have a wonderful time with Mr. Davis and his students in the schoolyard garden, meeting the baby chicks for the first time, learning about the chickens that are going home to new homes, the hens. That was exciting. And about that process makes me wonder if I could have a chicken or two at my house. And so just again, echoing the wonderful sentiments that Mr. Ortiz, that we are getting a lot of things right. And you are a wonderful example of just the great educators that we have in our building that do this work every day, that inspires students to go home and create gardens and work with local businesses and entrepreneurs to create basil ice cream, and just do really amazing things in our community. And so thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. Thank you for the invitation. And we'll be back again when third grade visits coming up pretty soon. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Mr. Morris?
We had CTE on the agenda today. I want to bring awareness specifically for the board that we have the Spring Career Fair at CHS on April 10th. They're going to start setting up at 9:30 and everything will hopefully conclude at 2:30.
I don't have anything. Thank you.
Ms. Dooley?
More directed to Mr. Davis. Before, we learned a lot about the extra vegetables and eggs that were given out last year. So feel free to bring those to our meeting if you have any extras later this spring. But no, just echoing everyone, gratitude. I got to attend student-led conferences last night, which was quite a scene in all of the most delightful ways you might imagine. And then a field, I think how many students were in the building or out of the building today on field trips? Ms. Powell, you might have kept track of, are the buses. We've got enough drivers to send kids on field trips. So kudos to you for that work as well. But mostly just want to wish everyone a restful and happy spring break. Enjoy some well-earned time off.
Ms. Richardson?
Yes, yes. So I would like to say I love all of the presentations that we have, but it's always a joy to honor and celebrate our students, CHS basketball teams, and of course our art winners. I also want to touch on the history of Charlottesville. I feel like every time I hear about how Charlottesville has came so far and just with the segregation and things like that, I feel like it's just so insightful, especially not being from Charlottesville. So it's always a delight to hear about your history. And then I am looking forward to hearing about the access control upgrades at our next meeting. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Powell, thank you for running a great meeting here. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody. Hope everybody has a great, well-deserved break, as everybody else said. I need to get out and spend some time with Mr. Davis, but I do have a chicken currently at my current residence. So let me talk to you first before you move forward with that. Let's see, we have any comments from you, Ms. Powell? Nope. Okay. Again, thank you. We appreciate you being here. And then work session wrap up, Ms. Swift.
Okay, so there was a request to provide a flow chart and or a checklist about when and where the weapons detectors will be used. And then also along with that, clear guidelines and an action plan when they will be used.
And then there was a follow-up to just providing updates about the door security access points and then communication tools, radios, walkies. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. All right, upcoming meetings. We do have kind of a, oof, where do I have that? A unique month, I believe, again. We have a meeting coming up since will be considered our April meeting. So our next meeting is May 2nd, here at 5 p.m. And then we do have a board advance. Everybody should have got emails about that. So May 18th, and that will be at K-Tech. So with that being said, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned and thank you all very much.